So my name's Gillian Caldwell, and I'm the campaign director at One Sky, which is a new and highly collaborative national campaign here in the United States to build a grassroots movement to deliver bold federal policy on global warming this year in 2009. And I left a job I loved as the executive director of Witness, which is a human rights organization working at a global level, in the fall of 2007, because I became very clear that global warming and climate change is the defining challenge of our time, and that I really owed it to myself and to my young children that I spend time trying to see what I could do.
Do you remember what the precipitating event or events were that led you to global warming?
Well, I was at a TED conference, which is a very high-powered conference that former Vice President Al Gore was presenting at, and saw his slideshow. So this was, in fact, while they were filming An Inconvenient Truth. And I got, close up and personal with the very dramatic challenge that we're facing. And I started making the connections, more so than the Vice President was at the time, between climate change, human rights, and humanitarian aid, which are longtime passions of mine. And it was obvious that global warming is stuck in an environmental box, but that the implications of global warming, whether it's eco-refugees or drought or famine or massive vectoral spread of disease and displacement, is going to be one of the very necessary consequences of a warming planet.
You're trained as a lawyer, is that right?
Yes, I am trained as an attorney and a filmmaker, but define myself as a social justice advocate.
Uh-huh. What's it been like working in this domain?
Well, I mean, for many years I dealt with very violent conflict and torture and abuse, rape as a weapon of war, child soldiers, a lot of pretty tough issues. And people would say to me, how can you do what you do every day? And I would say, what would be really depressing is to work on environmental issues. And what I meant by that is that I think we're facing a kind of an inexorable march towards Armageddon when it comes to our use and abuse of planetary resources. And, it really, I think, takes an enormous amount of courage to step up to the plate and to try to do this work. Even though I don't define it exclusively as environmental work, I really am very focused on the human consequences. It took, personal courage for me, more so than an undercover investigation on the Russian mafia that I conducted in the late 1990s, to decide to tackle this issue. And at the same time, it requires, a daily confrontation with, a very existential threat. And I think, particularly now in 2009, climate advocates and environmental advocates are feeling absolutely overwhelmed with the intensity and the volume of work coming across the transom, whether it's President Obama's administration, the Environmental Protection Agency under Lisa Jackson's leadership, or Congress, where there are multiple competing bills, energy bills, climate bills, transportation bills in discussion, the recovery package, the budget. There's basically a veritable onslaught of activity, which is all very good, but which is quite difficult to manage. And there is associated with that an overwhelming sense of urgency, because we face December 2009, the post-Kyoto framework negotiations, where we're going to try to get to the framework for a global treaty. And everybody's so clear that we need the United States to step up and exercise leadership and demonstrate leadership in order to get a global deal.
Do you ever worry we're not going to get there?
Well, I think that's the defining challenge of people's work on a day-to-day basis in this, is that there's that nagging voice inside your head which says we're not going to be able to do it in time. And you have to maintain the optimism and the hope that change is possible. And Obama's sort of called us, escalated us to that aspiration. But there is a very real sense that we are confronting such significant consequences already, that there's so much carbon loading in the atmosphere, and that there's so much political opposition, that it may be too little too late. And that is a defining worry and preoccupation for anybody doing this work right now.
What are the images that go through your head?
Oh, we have an estimated 650 million eco-refugees if water level continues to rise at projected rates. So imagine Katrina times, I can't even do the math. Imagine Katrina all around the globe. Imagine a global Katrina. Imagine the impact of that one miniature diaspora, that one dislocation, of that one coastal city in a country which is bound by ocean on almost every side. And then you look at low-lying countries like Bangladesh, where it's the poorest and most marginalized people who are getting hit now and always first and worst when it comes to climate change. Imagine, diseases, malaria, which couldn't, the mosquitoes couldn't survive in colder temperatures and are now, spreading like wildfire because of the warming planet. Imagine, drought and famine. Imagine wars over oil. We've been watching them unfold. Imagine wars over water. Water is one of the the scarcest and most important resources we have on planet Earth. You look at what's happening in Darfur, which is in part a war over that resource.
Let me switch just a little bit to the personal toll that doing what you do every day has, hearing what you hear every day has on you.
Lisa's like, she's going to get me to cry no matter what. I think there's that sense that no matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you try, you're living in a parallel universe where some people see it and some people get it and most of us don't. And that is extremely upsetting because you can't be headed straight off a cliff and have everybody look around you and say, we don't have the votes to stop the car from heading off the cliff. That's what we get all the time. What you're describing is politically impossible. And what we're saying is, no, what you're describing is absolutely untenable because it's the end of life on planet Earth as we know it. That's what the scientists are telling us. Those are the facts. We're past the point of disinformation and misinformation. And the reality is that people are still asleep. They're still asleep at the wheel. And, you look at somebody like the vice president who's dedicated his life every waking moment to tackling this issue. And you can see he's somebody, like so many of us, that is traumatized by the intensity and the enormity and the significance of this challenge. And there's nothing more frustrating than having the sensation that nobody knows what you're talking about. Or if they do, they're just prepared to look the other way, notwithstanding the fact that we have a commitment to future generations which cannot be, shirked.
Does it ever have an impact on your family, what you're going through?
You have to promise not to take all of the weeping in here. Well, if you're a social justice advocate and you're trying to raise kids, you're constantly dealing with those choices. Any working parent is, but when you look at your kids and you think, I've got to be there for them as they develop and grow, but I've also got to make sure they have a planet to develop and grow on. It's a very unique tension, and there is no single balance. There is no single solution for everybody. Some people make the choice to be full-time parents, and others like me try to do both, but every day and every week is a balancing act.